Hello, and welcome to this month's WorkRite webinar on personal travel safety. I'm Chris Jones, Technical Director at Posturite, and I, as usual, have with me the one and only Ellie Hale, our Business Development Manager. And today we also have a very special guest, Sarah Marshall. Sarah is the Travel and Security Manager for DAI Europe, who are a management consultancy firm that manages government-funded aid projects in the developing world. She's also part of the DAI's Global Security Department. Her role is to provide travel security advice for new and exciting projects and marketing trips, ensure security procedures are implemented and maintained, undertake regular review of security manual, organise related security training, and is part of the DAI's crisis management team. Thank you for joining us today, Sarah. I think
No
today is
problem.
particularly topical with the recent events in London. Ellie, we had a few of our own staff in London that day, as usual. Um,
Yeah,
what was our
I
response?
was one of them. Well, within 10 minutes, I think, of the incident happening, we had an email out to all of our London team to check in with HR immediately. So that's how we dealt with it.
Yeah.
We were quite lucky though. No one was
No.
no one was stuck or affected by it.
Anywhere near, yeah, which is good. And I think actually, because of the few people that I've spoken to that were in London, it's amazing how there was very little travel disruption. You know, everyone got out of London fairly easily, and it was all, obviously
Yeah.
it was a terrible event, but for those that weren't directly affected, it was fairly smooth, I felt. How about you, Sarah? I assume you had some staff or friends and colleagues in London at the time?
Yes, I've actually got a friend who works in the Houses of Parliament, and she did the Facebook check-in. So there's an emergency system on Facebook if there's a major event in your area. If you've got the I can't think of the word, location services. If
Mark
you've got those
mark
switched on,
yourself as safe, can't
yeah,
you?
you can
Yeah.
mark yourself as safe, and she did that more or less straight away, which was really good. So, because obviously she'd been inundated with messages because everybody knew where she worked. So something simple like what you were saying, just people email in or just check in on Facebook and let people know that you're safe.
Yeah,
Really, simple is best, really.
defo. So
Yeah.
you've dealt with quite a few major incidents, haven't you, Sarah, with your work?
Yes, yes. Well, I think the nature of where we do a lot of our work is it's going to happen, but unfortunately the last major incident we dealt with was actually the Brussels bombing, which happened sort of this time last year. We had quite a big group of staff out there. We've got an office in Brussels, and we also have got quite a lot of staff out there on a conference, and they were actually staying in the hotel literally right next to the Melbeck metro station, which had the bomb
Crikey.
explosion. So they were very lucky. Nobody was actually directly involved in it. I mean, we had some staff that were across town in the office, and we had some staff at the hotel. The ones that were in the hotel had to stay where they were. Um, but we've got a crisis line, so what happens is any major incidences happen, ring the crisis line, usually get through to me or one of my colleagues in the Global Security Department, and we manage the situation from there. We've got very, very robust insurance that includes evacuation insurance. And bizarrely, the lowest risk destination that we send staff to, we actually had to evacuate staff because of the explosion at the airport. We couldn't actually fly anybody out, so we had to
Oh God.
drive them across Belgium to Amsterdam, which is about 2 hours, and we flew them all out of Amsterdam. But luckily, we got everybody out that night. It goes to show if you've got really good, simple procedures in place and good insurance, it works. So yeah,
That's
but I
amazing.
mean the biggest challenge was we had about 6 different nationalities, and we were concerned that they couldn't cross over from Belgium into the Netherlands, but luckily they could. They had the right type of visa, and we've got really good insurance, and they managed the whole situation. They kept us updated the whole way, picked everybody up from the airport, made sure everybody was safe. I mean, we had some colleagues that had actually got onto a plane, and I don't know if you remember that when they evacuated the airports, people had to leave everything. They had to drop their hand luggage. So he had literally nothing.
Did they?
All he had was his passport. He had none of his clothes, none of his laptop, his suitcase, nothing. They had to just drop everything and leave. But I think because they were from so many different countries, it was quite difficult to. It was like herding cats, you know. But
Yeah,
you
I
just need to
must
keep.
imagine.
You just need to keep really calm and make sure that people know where they're going and what to do. But I think the key is you need to know what to do in the event of an emergency. I mean, anybody listening here, do you know what to do if you were abroad and you were involved in, be it a minor incident or a major incident, what you would actually do? You know, what about if the phone network went down? How would you actually contact people? Because we couldn't actually talk on mobile phones. In the end, we had to do Facebook audio because it's over the Wi-Fi in the hotel. We couldn't actually get
Really?
through on, yeah, we couldn't get through on any mobile phones. And when we had an evacuation back in 2013, we evacuated a number of staff from South Sudan. The only method of communication we could have was actually via Skype. It wasn't on mobile phones, it wasn't landlines, it wasn't anything like that. So you
Is that because
just
the
need.
lines were just so jammed with everyone panicking?
Sometimes they take them down. I mean, for example, in Ethiopia, they've only got one mobile phone supplier, and they just turn off the mobile phones if there's any incidences. So you just need to think, okay, so if there's an incident and if the mobile phones go down, how would I contact people? How would I communicate with people? So it's all about preparation, really. It's about you know, knowing your destination, knowing what you would do in an incident, and not to panic, really. I mean, that's the worst. I know it's easier said than done, but panicking is the worst thing, and it just sometimes your brain just seizes up and you think, okay, what do I do? You know, some companies issue little cards, which is something we do. We've got a little card with a crisis line number on, and just say, in the event of emergency, just call this number, and you know, that's kind of what you do,
So
really.
Sarah, when an emergency does happen, and obviously you've been involved in quite a few, how
Mm.
often are you, referring to your policies and procedure, and how much of it is actually, as you said, the expected method of communication just wasn't available? So how
Mm.
much of that is already documented within your organisation?
Well, everything's documented. You know, we've got policies on everything. You've got policies from how you book your travel, how you register your travel. We've got links in. We've got we use a system called iJet, which is like a travel tracking system and an information system. There's loads of other systems out there. You know, some travel agent, my old travel agent used to offer one. Use Control Risk offer ones. All different types of companies offer these type of systems, and we link all our policies into the risk ratings in these countries. So, for example, if we were sending somebody out to Pakistan, we would have to make sure that they booked their travel through the travel agent, that they registered it on iJet, that they were arranged airport pickup, they'd booked their hotel. You know, it's really simple, straightforward logistics, but it can make a huge difference. If, you know, for example, if you turn up from a really long flight from the UK to, say, Islamabad, you're tired, you don't know the airport, you know, you just want to get to your hotel, and you're not thinking properly. But if you prepare all of this before you travel, then it just helps. It will mitigate against so many risks, just by doing some sort of simple preparation, really. But everything is linked with policy, and
Mm.
one of the main keys of our policy is that it's everybody's responsibility, security. It's not just me writing a policy and saying follow this rule, follow that rule. You are all responsible for your own personal safety. You need to know what to do in a situation. You need to, you know, understand your destination that you're going to. You need to prepare. You need to take the right clothes with you, particularly if you're a female traveller. You know, we always recommend, if people travel to Islamabad, to bring headscarf, long
Yeah.
sleeves, you know, quite conservatively dressed, which, you know, we don't often have to do in London. You know, everybody. It's a bit, it's not as conservative, but you need to understand the context of where you're going and what you're doing, and that
And be
kind of thing,
respectful, I
really.
guess, of the place that you're
Yeah,
visiting.
yeah. Yeah, of course. And also the key is low profile. It's keeping a low profile, not making yourself stand out, not having like expensive jewelry and laptops and, you know, making a show of yourself. You know, it's low key, simple, and taking things with you that you wouldn't want to lose. I mean, I know one of the big issues that has come up recently is about flying on certain airlines and having to check your laptops into the hold.
Yeah.
Um, And I had a discussion with one of my colleagues about that yesterday. We've got a project office in Jordan, and they were saying, well, what do? I go out to the Middle East all the time. And I said, well, you know, you're going for work, you're booking the flights properly, you've got good insurance, so if something happens, just back up your data. And if you want to travel with these airlines, you're just going to have to go with the rules.
Yeah.
And you know, it's simple preparation like that that I think's important, and understanding who you're flying with.
And so
Absolutely.
what about in an incident where, you know, let's take London's events on Wednesday. Let's say
Hmm.
you couldn't get hold of one of your employees that you thought might be effective. What do you do then?
You just have to keep trying. I mean, we had one of our colleagues was involved in um, the Splendid Hotel attack in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. He was staying in the hotel. It was attacked by gunmen. Luckily, he'd forgotten something in his room, gone back to his room to get it, and he actually missed the whole incident, barricaded himself in his room. But the problem
Oh
was
my
the
God,
battery
that's
on
so
it.
lucky.
He was very, very lucky. But the battery on his phone had died, so we couldn't get hold of him. You know, we tracked him on our travel tracking system. We knew where he was staying. Obviously, we couldn't get through on the landlines because they'd evacuated everybody from the hotel and moved them to a local stadium. And we just couldn't get hold of him. But what he'd actually done is we'd got his next of kin details, and we'd managed to get hold of his next of kin, and he'd sent a text message to say that he was okay, and that he was staying actually with the EU ambassador and he was being looked after. Um, but with an incident like that, you just need to make sure people know where you're going, what you're doing, that you've passed on next of kin details as well when you're travelling abroad. I mean, we're talking about terrorist attacks and major incidences, but the biggest risk to staff travelling is more likely to be a road traffic accident than anything else. And
Yeah, of
you're
course.
hit by a car, you're unconscious, you know, you need to make sure that people know who to contact in an emergency, and you need to make sure that you keep these details up to date with HR, that you know they know who to talk to and who to contact. And we were very lucky that we've got people. He's actually Italian, the guy. We had to contact an Italian speaker to speak to his daughter. You know, we had to think about very carefully about what we said to her as well, because it was an ongoing incident. But luckily, the first thing she said was, I've got a text from him and he's fine. So, you know, in a situation like that, you know, you've just got to always think of a plan B. Can you send an email on Wi-Fi? You know, can you there's all different methods. You know, you may be able to use a payphone if you've got some change that you can use. You know, anything like that, just to get a message that you're safe and checking in with people. Because one of the things that we do is when we've had a big incident, we've got a lot of travellers in Afghanistan, is when everybody's accounted for, we send out a company-wide message to say all staff are accounted for, because what can actually take up a lot of time is everybody going, have you seen the news? Have you seen what's happened? And one of the it, in hindsight, it is amusing, but at the time it wasn't. We'd been dealing with this incident in Brussels since about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I had a phone call at 3 o'clock from one of my colleagues saying, "Have you seen what's happened in Brussels?" And I was like, "Yeah."
God, I've
You
been
know, so
dealing with it all day.
yeah. I mean, you don't need to tell you the company wide the ins and outs of everything that's going on, but just to let people know what's happening, so you're not inundated with lots of calls going, oh, is so and so okay, so and so okay. You know, just account for everybody and let everybody know, and just keep it really simple. The problem is if you make your procedures too complicated, people just won't follow them.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so how do you ensure either when the policy changes or when you've got new people or just refreshing it, how do you actually make sure people understand the policies and follow them?
Well, there's lots of different ways. I mean, every new starter in our company, we're lucky because there's only 140 of us based here. I do an induction that usually takes about 15 minutes. I do a little presentation, where to find the information out. We've got like an intranet, a portal that we use, that we keep all the information stored on. We've got this iJet system that we can send out alerts as well. So if anybody's travelling and there's a change in policy while they're travelling, we can let them know immediately. Um, there's all different means of communication. Also, communication isn't a one-way thing. You know, if you are a person that travels regularly, go and ask your HR department, go and ask your security department, go and ask your health and safety department, you know, what have we got in place? As I said, we make a big part of our policies, it's personal responsibility. And at the end of the day, if you're the one that's out there in Brussels and you've been involved in an incident, you're the person that's probably going to have to deal with it if you're a lone traveller. So you need to make sure that you understand. But also, there's a lot of systems in place within the UK as well. I mean, a good example is the Susie Lamplugh Trust. They're doing a lot of work at the moment on lone travellers within the UK. So if you travel frequently, they've got all sorts of simple systems that people can check in on. Their website's really good about giving sort of personal advice and that kind of thing. So you just need to do a little bit of research, really. And we also have got a similar system to the one that you're demonstrating at the moment, but it's more orientated towards the company. This is really good sort of general advice, and it doesn't hurt to do something like this, just so you understands, you know, how things work, really.
Absolutely. I think when you guys were getting the WorkRite system, you had already put your policies and procedures in place. I think you had that already sorted.
Yeah.
But for anyone listening, this is something that we can always bespoke the course that I'm showing and make it specific to your policies and procedures. For sure. What about when it's not the major instance that you're talking about, but kind of little ones? I was in Italy a couple of weeks ago and was there for 10 minutes and got robbed of my wallet, which had my passport in it, which was disastrous. The first thing I did, well, after going to the police station to report it, was phone Chris and cry for about half an hour about what I was going to do and how I was going to get home. But I was really lucky that, you know, that Chris is one of my managers and was very calm and just said, right, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to go here. I was going to miss work on Monday because I had to travel to the embassy in Rome to get a new passport, book new flights, and
it could
book
be
a
worse
new hotel.
though, couldn't it?
I know, yeah, poor me, more wine and pizza. But at the time, I mean, it was horrific. Like I was so worried. My friend had to leave me, so I was stranded. Luckily, she gave me a credit card, but I would have been. Chris was talking about Western unioning money to me. It was horrible, but luckily, you know, my work is very kind, and I had my work phone. I worked from Rome Airport on the Monday after I got my emergency passport. But I had no idea about any of that. I don't travel internationally for work, so you know, it's not my work's responsibility to let me know about that. But I had no idea that an emergency passport just gets you to Gatwick.
Yeah.
So, and then they took it off me.
Well, the thing is, you don't really need to know that. I mean, that's one of the things that you said, a little problem. It's not a little problem for you. It's had quite a big impact on you. It's had an impact on the business. So we deal with all sorts of incidences. Just because it's a major terrorist attack that's on the news, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not important. So every incident needs to be treated the same, really. And you don't need to know about emergency passports. You don't need to know about, I mean, it helps because you've done some preparation and you might understand, but all you need to do is, who do I call in an emergency and who in my company can help me?
Everyone
really,
phone Chris Jones.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what you need to do, really. And you did that.
The thing that we just take for granted so often now is, you know, how often do we go out of the building without a mobile phone? And, well, in fact, my mobile phone's got my credit cards on it nowadays anyway. So actually, if you've suddenly lost, you know, one or two things, suddenly Ellie was, you know, an independent Rome go-getter to, oh my God, I've got no money, no way of getting home, no way of proving who I am, all that sort of stuff. And particularly as it was over a weekend, there was also nobody within the country that was really willing to help either. So you really were very, very, very much gone from, you know, hero to zero in about 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chris.
Although we obviously supported Ellie really well while she was stuck, she's had a fair amount of ribbing since she's got back. So,
typical of me.
Indeed, yeah.
There we
Yeah,
go. So,
I mean, you just need to know who to contact, because there's lots of things that you can do if the worst happens, and there's usually somebody within your company that will understand what to do. You know, for example, somebody in your travel department knows that they can ring up the hotel and prepay everything for you. They could do full bill back on the hotel rooms if need be. You know, they can do all sorts of things. In fact, using a really good travel management company is an absolute godsend. I mean, we use them quite extensively during the Brussels incident last year. We had, I think it was about 15 international travellers that were due to fly out on the 22nd of March 2016 from Brussels airport to their various destinations, and we had to change all those flights to go from Amsterdam, and they did all that for us. They sorted it all out. They sent all the e-tickets through. You know, it's when you try and you know, book stuff yourself on the internet, you don't register things properly, or you know, you do things like, oh, I'm really busy and important, I need to book a flight to go to Nairobi on Monday. Oh, I'll just put it on my credit card, I won't do it through the travel agent, it's a bit tedious. But then something happens and you're on your own. So, you know, understand what your company's got in place, use what your company's got in place. And yes, sometimes I often say when I do inductions with people is use the systems, don't work against them, because in the long run, you're the person that's going to lose out on lots of different processes and procedures and all sorts of bits and pieces that the company have already got in place. And if you haven't got it, then, you know, ask the questions, you know, of your HR department, your travel department, your security department, you know, how can you help me? And, you know, make an appointment with somebody, sit down and have a chat with them, saying, what have you got in place? And understand what's needed, really, and if they can recommend, you know, and talk to people that have been to these places as well. You know, for example, I'm going out to Brussels next week. I've not been before, and I'm going to have a chat with one of my colleagues about what Brussels is like, what the airport, what the Eurostar station's like. How do I get from the Eurostar station to the airport, to the hotel, all that kind of stuff, really.
That's excellent. So, I mean,
preparation is the key.
well,
Yeah,
indeed.
definitely.
So, you will have those in the audience will have seen that Ellie's been going through this our course in the background while we've been chatting, and normally we go through the course from beginning to end, but I think this has been a really, really useful chat, and far better than just listening to Ellie drone on for half an hour going through the course. But so I think we'll mix it up a bit this month, and rather than going through in our normal format, I think what's important to know is anybody that is interested in talking to Ellie further about the course in particular, Ellie will follow up with a copy of the presentation, that sort of stuff anyway, but anybody that wants to find out a bit more about our offering as well, and how we can fit in with your policies, please do contact Ellie after the webinar.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for joining us, Sarah. That was super.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
Super. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Ellie. And we'll see you all next month.
Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks then. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.